Get going. All right, welcome. I am one of your internal OSU EAP counselors. Hello, everyone. Thanks for showing up. It's so nice to see people in person. Love my Zoomers. Don't get me wrong, but it's so lovely to see your faces. So today we're going to talk about one of our favorite things. Yay, burnout, compassion fatigue, and compassion satisfaction. This has definitely been working with a lot. So we're going to go over the pandemic. Where are we? And go over a little stress 101. We're going to talk about the differences between burnout, secondary trauma, compassion fatigue, and compassion satisfaction. And then last but not least, I'm actually going to leave you with some coping and prevention tips and also some culture of care tips. Now, burnout's been around for a long time, but this dang dirty pandemic has really pushed its limits for us, for all of us in the caring professions. And to be quite frank with you, we're all now in caring professions. You can be a nurse. I see some people in scrubs. Hello, my scrubs. And those of us like myself, as a counselor, obviously I'm a care provider, but anybody who's in an administrative assistant role, anybody who supports people, we're not in manufacturing, we're in peopling, right? So we're experiencing a lot these days. So let's talk just about the phases of disaster response. These are the emotional phases of disaster response. Some of you may have seen this, the EAP, we've been touting this for the last 2.5 years. This slide is from SAMHSA. So you can think of here as pre-disaster up here. This was more like February 2020. And then impact March 11th, 2020, when the World Health Organization declared COVID-19 as a pandemic. Then we keep going on. Remember when we were supporting all our local restaurateurs and being actually nice to the people at Kroger's? Yeah, that time. And we were being really nice to our first responders, even though we didn't have enough PPE. That's this time. But we were right into this honeymoon. We've got this. It's only going to be another 2 weeks, right? Then we hit disillusionment. This is when we started getting newer variants, and it was getting scary for us. Even though there was hope, we had little hope pockets with our vaccine. Yay. Thanks, everybody in medicine, for doing that one in research. But now we're right here. We're in the setback. We're working through our grief. We've had a lot of loss. And we're working through the grief, but we're getting some more setbacks. As we know, there's some new variants out there in Europe having some good times, and they're slowly coming over here. So this is kind of where we're at right now. We're learning how to live and work in a pandemic. But that's not the only thing that's been going on for us. Not only have we endured 2 years of the pandemic, we have also and continue to experience racial trauma and civil injustice just this last week. We are dealing with our rights possibly being on the line. We are dealing with a war in Europe. We are dealing with inflation. Hi, that's causing every Buckeye and everybody here in the United States some issues, right? It's hard. Even my prices at my favorite Aldi Isle of Shame are going up, and I don't love that. There's just a lot going on. And this can really impact us and add to the burnout that we're experiencing at work. So the reason why I do this slide is because this is not just in a bubble. We are all experiencing so many different things. This does not include what's going on in your families, what's going on with your health. So imagine all of that. So now that I've got you down, let's keep you more down. So pandemic fatigue. Yes, this is a thing. This is not an actual diagnosis, but our lovely American Medical Association has finally coined it. And so you can actually look it up and find fun articles. It's good times. So it is listed by or experienced as being excessively tired. This doesn't matter if you've had your good old 8 hours of sleep. How many people get 8 hours of sleep? People in Zoom land, I actually want you to raise your hand. I don't. Oh, you do? Oh, gosh, God bless you. Who else gets 8 hours? Okay, but you can still feel tired. That's what this is talking about. Even if your body has been well rested, your brain is exhausted. In addition to that, not feeling social connections are worth it. So even though they're great people, they're nice family, I'm just not interested. Now, it's not as bad as depression where you're absolutely not interested, but anybody who takes a little bit more energy from you socially, you're not hanging with them, right? I am hanging with my low maintenance people, and that is a very, very tight circle, okay? In addition to this one, and this one hurt me the most, sense of ineffectiveness. This hit me hard about 6 months ago. I literally thought I was not good enough in every capacity of my life. I am not a good enough counselor. I'm not a good enough public speaker. I'm not a good enough wife, daughter, dog mom. I am a bad friend because I did not send a TikTok in months to one friend. So that's where we get to this place where we're exhausted. So there are ways to deal with this. So I'm not going to take away all the hope here. Number one, trying to get connected, even at your most low maintenance energy that you have. If that's sending a text to a friend, an email to a colleague saying, hey, do you want to run and get coffee? Do you want to just go outside? It's not raining for a minute. That's wonderful if you can do that. If you can plan something, just make some type of connection. In addition to that, try to get some rest and challenge some of that negative self-talk that you have. If you need help with that, counseling. And there is hope. We are not the first group of humans to live through a pandemic. Yes, there's a lot of loss. I'm not taking that away. That is there. And we are getting through it. We are working through it. So stress, this is one of my absolute favorite definitions of stress. It is the psychological perception of pressure and the impact on your body. Okay, who here has their stress hanging out in their little trappies here? Oh, I got a lot of hands up. Zoomland, I can see all your hands. Yes, that's what I'm talking about, right? My masseuse gets up in there and she's like, what in the world did you do? I'm like, I went to work. That's all I did. And I swear to you, that's where it gets collected for me. But stress can get us into tummy aches. Remember when you were in grade school or middle school and you didn't want to take a test, right? So stress does have a physical manifestation. What I really like about this definition is the perception of pressure. The perception of pressure in regards to perhaps some of your social identities, what you think your role should be, all of those types of things. When you think about the pressure, the expectation of self, right? Or what you think people expect of you. That perception has movement. That can change over time. Your perception of what you thought an adult was when you were 7 years old has completely changed to now. Am I correct? Way more responsibility. But it really has changed. So our perception can grow with education, with support, with talking, with counseling, with all those types of things. Your perception can shift to help manage some of that stress. So I do want you to think about that. This definition is the first definition of stress that has given me hope. So that's why I'm sharing it with you. So there are tons and tons of types of stress. I am not the stress expert, but I want to just limit to 3. I like rules of 3. If you've ever been to my trainings before, if you've ever been a client of mine, then you know, or even a therapist of mine, you would know that I like 3 because it's a little bit easier to figure out. So there is positive stress, and I love the name of it. It's eustress. This is the stress that you have like before something good's coming, right? Like if you're planning for a little wedding or a party or you're getting new furniture, you know, whatever it is, it's that excitement stress. Like, oh, I got to clean up stuff. I got to organize. I'm stressed out. It's still impacting me. My trappies might be feeling it, but it's a more positive, exciting stress that we don't really mind too much. And there's chronic stress. Chronic stress is the stuff that I get worried about with my clients and with myself. Chronic stress is the grinding stress that wears you down over time. I want you thinking about things that are fundamentally beyond our control. The stress of war. We have several people here at Ohio State that are feeling that chronic stress even of dealing with Ukraine because they have a lot of family members and friends there, okay? Racial trauma, ongoing racial trauma. That is a chronic stressor, to not feel safe where you work, where you live. That is ongoing. That is the stuff. Poverty, that is a stressor. And we're all feeling that a little bit with the inflation stuff, regardless of where you are on your earning, okay? So these things are really, really pervasive. And the thing about chronic stress is we almost, I don't want to say adapt to it, we get accustomed to it. We learn how to live with the weight. Doesn't mean it's great for us. It doesn't mean it's necessarily healthy. And that also can contribute to burnout. And then we have distress, and that is outright the mental strain from emotional pain or excessive worry that impacts your level of functioning. Okay? So what are the signs of stress? These are the signs. These are the things outside of us, okay? These are the things that people can see, all right? We can look and be agitated, right? We can look agitated. We can look hopeless. We can look like we're neglecting ourselves. I'll get back to that one in a moment. A personality change or social withdrawal. Now, these are things that are uncharacteristic about you when you're not in a point of stress. Okay? So, story about self-neglect. I used to be in a partial hospitalization over at the other hospital. Sorry, Ohio Health. And so I was over there and I had this wonderful client. So, partial hospitalization is step down from psychiatric inpatient. You hang out with us for 5 days a week, 3 to 5 hours a day. Can you imagine hanging out with this mug that long? That would put you back in the hospital, but that's a whole other thing. So, this client of mine comes up and she is stunning, gorgeous anchor woman makeup. And I'm looking at this woman like, well, you're depressed. You look fierce. Like, what is going on there? And so we kind of asked her about it. Like, how do you even get the energy to put this gorgeous makeup on? And this is before TikTok. So girl had skill. And she looked at me and she's like, Helka, this is my mask. If I look fabulous and I have my makeup done, people think I have it together and they don't bother me. And I was like stunned. It was amazing. By the end of her treatment cycle with us, it was about 3 or 4 weeks. It's amazing how quickly the brain can heal at times. She came in, not a stitch of makeup on. It was amazing. First of all, woman was gorgeous, flawless, beautiful skin. And I looked at her, I said, how are you doing? She's like, I'm doing great. And it was amazing to see that. So remember, I say that story because it's what's not characteristic. And then there's the symptoms. That's the stuff we feel inside. I know there's a lot of words on this slide. I'm sorry, but it's really good. Because think about your emotional feeling. You might be feeling angry or irritable or frustrated with stress. I know I get that way. I get really nice, don't I? Yeah. My colleagues would tell you I get crispy, get really short with my comments. Yeah, I use a lot of not appropriate humor. It's not good because that's how I'm getting my agitation out. It's not fun. But we can feel overwhelmed, nervous, anxious, and we really struggle with concentration, and our short-term memory can really lapse. Then we have our physical evidence. We got those trappies, right? We're trapping up all that stress. And we also have maybe an elevated blood pulse rate. Okay, we all know that breathing, the 4 square breathing, remember? Breathe in, hold for 4, right? Breathe in for 4, hold for 4, breathe out for 4. That can actually lower your blood pulse rate. So I would highly recommend that if you're in an agitated state. You can also be very sick. A lot of us can get body aches and pain, gastrointestinal distress, headaches, all that good stuff. It does affect you. Remember, mental health is not neck up. It is the whole body. And then there's behavioral. We have trouble relating to people at work and at home. And we really are struggling to get over the little difficulties, which normally on a good day, you could pivot, right? We can accommodate, we can move around, we can figure out another solution. But when we're stressed, our brain does not have the capability to get through that stuff. So these are the symptoms and how it can feel. Now, the effects of chronic stress, like I said, lower immune system. My favorite story, probably some of you have heard this one already. So I already had rheumatoid arthritis coupled with the most ridiculously stressful job of my life before I came here. And at age 40, Helka got shingles. Good times, because that stress even knocked my immune system down even more. And I got the shingles. Didn't even know I had it because I was so used to chronic pain. And the doctor laughed at me and was like, why weren't you here like weeks ago? I don't know. It's fun. And then we've got more anxiety and depression, which I'll get to that. Changes in your sleep patterns. This one's hard. Maybe you're struggling falling asleep, staying asleep, or sleeping too much. Poor decision making. Your executive ability to make decisions, your executive decision skills, all that good stuff is a little schnitzeled, okay, when we're overstressed. And then, like I said earlier, the short-term memory problems. So all of this chronic stress, if we're not able to kind of manage some of that and deal with it or get some relief, it may lead to burnout and compassion fatigue. There is a difference between stress and burnout. I love this slide. I'm going to talk about this slide. I apologize. I'm going to read everything on it because I love it. Stress is characterized by overengagement. I'm overly involved. This is when you're like, you hear somebody at work having an issue and you're like, I'm going to jump in and give you the answer. Like more so than you normally do. You're constantly everywhere, okay? You're overengaged at work. Your emotions are overactive. They're like right here. So the minute something gets said or done, you're having an emotional response. Then it can produce a sense of urgency. This is a big one. This is how I know I'm stressed, that everything feels like a priority. How many times do we feel like that at work? Zoomland too. Raise your hand if you feel like that sometimes at work. Everything's a priority, everything's urgent, and it's all important, right? But our executive brain here is having a hard time being able to prioritize. And then your loss of energy physically, the emotional energy is shot. And this one can lead more to worry and anxiety disorders, okay? The primary damages on us are physical. So that's my traps, that's my stomach, that's all of my muscles clenching, okay? Where burnout's a little different. I am disengaged. I'm like, I'm here, but I'm not here, okay? This is what we would say is not being present, okay? My body might be here, but my give a darn's busted, okay? Our emotions are blunted. Things that normally we were passionate about or that we cared about, that's fine, whatever. So they don't want to do that. They're not going to approve the program. All right, fine. It's not even giving up. It's just like, okay, I don't care. And then it produces a sense of helplessness and hopelessness. That's a tough one. That hurts. And then, of course, loss of motivation. As you can see, this one leads to depression. This one leads more to anxiety. And then a primary damage here is emotional. We're just exhausted. So welcome to stress, population, 5-ish billion. To burnout. That's my little interpretation of that picture. Hope you enjoyed it. So burnout, let's look at a nice definition. And I am going to read the screen. It's a state of mental, physical, emotional, and spiritual exhaustion, resulting from long-term involvement in emotionally demanding situations. Almost everybody I know at Med Center could say, yep. I work with a lot of residents. Yep. I work with a lot of admin. Yep. I see it. I feel it myself at times. I get crispy too. It's associated with the routine hassles of work. It's got a subtle onset, and it gradually increases dissatisfaction with your work and your work environment. Even sometimes when we're feeling this way, we're like, why did I ever become a therapist? Why did I ever say yes to this job? Why didn't I go for that other one? This is where we go into a lot of whys and the poor me's because we're starting to doubt ourselves. It results, Jennifer Brandt, she used to be, I don't know if she's still here, a doctor and a social worker and veterinary social worker with College of Veterinary Medicine. I found this on the internet, so it's quite nice. She said, if you're experiencing problems with coworkers, loss of economic security, or position or diminished control, burnout can start to set in. And it really is characterized by that emotional, physical, and mental exhaustion. Yep, pretty much covers it. Then we have secondary traumatic stress. This is a little bit different. This is the indirect trauma that can occur when we are exposed to difficult or disturbing images and stories secondhand. When I talk to our academic advisors on university side, they experience this one a lot. They are hearing what their students went through over the last 2.5 years and the struggle that they're having in that weird space in between adulthood and childhood and having to be independent, yet not having all the skills and tools and access. And they're hearing that. In addition to the normal stuff that can happen during college age. There's already normal stressors and traumas that happen during that time. Add a fun pandemic on it, we're having a great time. But this can also happen in the healthcare field. This can happen with anybody's job. For me, I hear about people's trauma every day, all day. I've luckily fashioned my own Wonder Woman bracelets, and I've figured out how to, for the most part, and protect myself. But it's taken 15 years to learn that. It's not something we learn overnight. If you're more interested in this, literally you can Google secondary traumatic stress, and also you can always reach out to the EAP. We're happy to answer more questions about it. Basically, it is a concept that was developed by trauma specialists, Beth Stam and Charles Figley and others in the early 1990s, because they sought out to understand why service providers seem to be exhibiting symptoms very similar to post-traumatic stress disorder. Yet they weren't the ones in the trauma, but they heard the trauma, the vicarious trauma. So this can impact us as well. So now that I've got you thoroughly down, we're going to make it even better. I'm going to take you a little bit downer. So we've got burnout, and I have secondary trauma. I now have compassion fatigue. It is hard for me to care. It's hard for me to do the work that my job requires because I am depleted. That's compassion fatigue. So it is the expectation that we can be immersed in suffering and lost daily and not be touched by it is as unrealistic as walking through water and not expecting to get wet. Think about that. Even when I walk through the hospital to go do a presentation, I'm walking past patients. I see people in beds. I see staff working very hard and are trying to keep their stuff together. I'm going to be impacted by that. With me working with clients and hearing their trauma, even though I got my Wonder Woman bracelets, I still am going to be impacted by that. I'm human. I'm not that. I don't have a shell over my brain that protects the little parts of Helka, and neither do you. So this is just a really interesting concept. So for yourself also, these terms are to give you some understanding about maybe what you're experiencing, what your colleagues are experiencing. And I encourage all of you to take this language back to your teams and let's have these conversations and what we can do. So is it burnout? Is it secondary traumatic stress? I don't know what's going on. Well, guess what? There's this really nifty self-report. It's free. You can Google it. It's called the ProQuil, the Professional Quality of Life Scale. We actually do this in our resident wellness program. I've done this prior to coming to Ohio State. I've done it with outreach librarians who go out into the community because they lose some of their community members and really do experience some stuff. So the ProQuil, it measures compassion satisfaction. That's the good stuff of our job. That's why we keep doing what we're doing, okay? And then it helps you know if it's more burnout or secondary traumatic stress. And then at that point, once you know that, you can kind of figure out how we should maybe go about managing that. And I believe you guys are getting the slides too. And if you have any questions, you always email the EAP at osumc.edu. We will answer your questions. So what's the response? If we do burnout plus secondary trauma, but I put a splash of compassion satisfaction in there, I'm going to prevent compassion fatigue. So there's our hope bubble, guys. I'm going to took a little negative. Now we're going to get a little positive. All right. So compassion satisfaction. That is the pleasure you derive from being able to do your work. This is our meaning and fulfillment. This is why you got into the field. This is the value sets that you live every day. This is the pleasure you get from doing your job. When I was in private practice, because I worked with clients a lot longer, it was awesome when I would be doing their last session with them and they tell me, Helka, I like me again. I could ride that comment for months. That did it for me. When I have a thank you, hey, something that you said in a training really meant something to me. Thank you. When somebody says you gave me the words I needed to explain to my spouse what I'm feeling so that can stop, that feels good for me. So I would ask you all to kind of take a moment for you. What are the feel goods about your job? What are the things that give you meaning and fulfillment? It's not just about advancement, but the stuff that you actually do every day. There is meaning and fulfillment, and we need that. It's really important for us to feel a sense of belonging at work and to be able to contribute to the work setting. I always tell staff, and if I ever get a manager consult, communication equals inclusion. Just tell me what's going on. I understand there's certain things you might not be able to share with me, but if you communicate and let me know what's going on, I feel included. I feel like I belong. That's what I need. Maybe ask yourself, what do you need to get more compassion satisfaction in your daily lives? So here's some tips, because we're going to give you some tips. Get educated about compassion fatigue and compassion satisfaction so you know what it is. That's what you're doing today. Just having the term even kind of helps settle some of that stuff that we've been feeling. Yes, practice self-care. You guys coming here, and those of you online, you're logged in. That's important for you guys to take time out for self-care. Coming here is self-care. Setting those emotional boundaries with family, friends, work. My favorite word these days is no. No, not going to do that. No, can't do it till June. No, not gonna. So that's something we can also practice. Engaging in outside hobbies. If your whole life is work and it's kind of craptastic right now, that's going to be tough. You need some time to go outside of that and heal a little bit. Cultivating healthy friendships outside of work as well can be helpful. Of course, using your coping skills. Here's my quick crash course on your 3 coping skills. Remember, I like my 3s. You got self-talk, you got social support network, and you got redirection or distraction. Those are your 3 coping skills. And then, of course, working on identifying some workplace strategies. That's one of the nice things about becoming a Buckeye Wellness Innovator is that you get to go to these meetings. I think they do about every other month. I forget, I actually do the meetings with them. So, hey, that's great that I remember. But you learn about all the health and opportunities that we have here on campus, and you can bring those to your department. So prevention, because I would rather not get burned out. To be quite frank with you, it's not fun. Those boundaries, the reason why you're going to see that a lot is because it's important. The reason why you're going to see self-care is because it's important. Self-care is not just going to the spa. That's a great bonus if you can do it. But self-care is an everyday kind of thing. And then building resilience and being accurate. So let's talk about boundaries. The biggest thing about boundaries, how I was even joking with my nose, I'm not really joking, I was doing those, but is giving yourself the permission to do it. How many times when we grew up, like we learned very early on in grade school, middle school, high school, even college, in our big master programs or doctorate programs, is to ask for permission to talk. Remember this, the raise your hand? In the United States, we do this, we raise our hand. And so we've been taught and programmed that we have to ask for permission for everything. But as an adult, who is there to ask? I don't always have to ask my boss for permission. I don't always ask my spouse for permission. Ew, gross. No, I'm not doing that. I'll ask for consultation with my spouse. But we need to ask ourselves, am I giving myself the permission to take a break today? Myself the permission to attend this lunch and learn? The permission to take a walk at lunch? To say no to a friend because I really wanted to just do my laundry and watch Baby Yoda tonight? That's okay. So that's really important to understand your priorities, and your priorities may shift. So that's the whole piece of time limited. That's why I said, no, I'm not going to say yes until June. I'm not available for new things until June. That's okay. They can be time limited boundaries. But a big key of boundaries is giving yourself the permission to try things out, get information, and give yourself a break. This goes along with what we were talking about, compassion, satisfaction. These are the get-tos of your job. I know all of us love to fetch about the have-tos. I have to do documentation. I do not like it. I'm glad I don't have to use Epic, but I still have to do documentation. I don't like to do it. There's a lot of things I don't like to do. However, what are my get-tos? And I'm not saying to ignore the have-tos. They're there. It's just make it more accurate. I have to do this, and I get to do this at work. I get to do this at home. There are times too that I'll sit there and go, I'm so glad I get to do my laundry and I don't have to go to a laundromat. I used to hate that because I felt like I had to stay and watch at my laundry. And that was annoying to me. Now I can just put it in and tra-la-la, I got 20 minutes to go do something. It's just looking at things with a little bit of different perception. And remember what I said earlier, stress is the perception of pressure. So when we alter that perception, we can give ourselves some wiggle room and growth. So let's talk about connections at work, because that's also important when we're thinking about burnout. To be quite frank with you all, I first came for this. I already had 17 years in with the state of Ohio. I came to Ohio State to get my retirement. I want my PERS. I am not going to lie. And at this point, I got 9 years to retirement. I'm excited. Okay. I also came for the pay because, believe it or not, mental health clinicians, we don't get paid much. Here, at least it was a little bit better. So that's another reason why I came. I came for my survival. Okay. So I could pay for my home. I could eat. I could have a plate car and health insurance. It's the first reason why I came here. Then I came more for belonging. I am an OSU alum. Came here for undergrad sociology and women's studies, now called gender studies. And I love being a Buckeye. I like serving my Buckeyes. I like belonging to my 4-person team. Yes, the EAP only has 4 people. It's amazing. And so I like that. I like belonging to this stuff. But then we start thinking about our importance and esteem. Think about, do you feel like you belong to your team? Do you feel like you belong to your department? Do you feel a sense of belonging? If we don't, then what do we need to do to get more? Or do we need to switch? That's okay too. And think about the esteem that you do. I don't care what job you have here. You're valued. You're important. I used to work at the Supreme Court of Ohio prior to all this. And I always used to say, it doesn't matter who you are, we're all important, from the custodian to the chief justice. We all have a role and we all keep this institution running. So you do have value, you do have belonging and importance here. Sometimes that gets clouded with the have tos and the stress. I'm not negating that. We just want an and. So connection in the hybrid work setting has been really interesting. It has been fun. We've done pretty good. Most of us have pivoted pretty well in these past 2 years. And so we just need to be remembering to continue to foster some friendships and connections at work, ritualizing human connection. So starting a meeting up with, hey, what's something that you guys have learned this week? Somebody want to share something they've learned, something they valued, something they're grateful for. Getting that connection, whether they're online or whether they're in person, especially when we have both happening. Emphasize purpose. What are we doing here? Reinforce that with some stories or reinforce that with some stats. Like, hey, look, we've really impacted this. For the EAP, our utilization rate's gone up. That's great. That means you guys are feeling safer to use it. That's what we want. So that makes me feel better for my meaning and fulfillment and my connection. And then employee wellness opportunities and the permission to go. This is a big thing. We need our leadership and our managers to understand we need time to go. We need time to take time off. We need that permission. We need that culture provided. So this will help us along with that. And then work communication. We are adapting to that asynchronous communication. We were just talking about OneDrive and doing that stuff. And asynchronous communication means regardless of time, we can communicate. So that means making meeting notes. Okay, so no matter if you were there virtually or in person, or if you had to miss it because you had a day off, we all have the information. What did I say earlier about information? It's inclusive. So be mindful about your tone. I'll be honest, I am a Gen Xer. And when I have a little millennial answer my question and I don't have a relationship with them and they go, yep, I get a little judgy. I do. And I have to check myself before I wreck myself. But you want to be mindful about your tone. Are you being super directive? For me, I usually get down to brass tacks and I won't do the entry level of like, hi, great, thank you so much for your email, or thank you for your patience in my response. And I'll go straight to, yes, I'll be there, Nicole, not a problem. And we need to be mindful about our tone and also being equitable and inclusive of our language. Just little things about constantly learning about language. Like in my world, we don't really call it mental illness, we call it mental health. Just something that different can change the tone of your email. So being mindful, you all have certain work worlds that you have your own culture. So be mindful of that when you're working and doing your communication. Self-care basics, people. Assess your needs. Think about the domains of your self-care. So am I feeling depleted? That's my question that I ask myself when I kind of do my self-care. Where am I feeling depleted? Am I feeling depleted in my social life, in my personal, like my spiritual life? Is it my physical health? Is it my nutritional health? Where is it that I'm feeling depleted? Is it that I'm not feeling like I don't know enough and I need to read another book or listen to one on tape? I was going to say on tape, sorry. Audible. I'm judging and aging myself right now. So just assess your needs where you're feeling it and then schedule it. We're really good at scheduling for everybody else, our patients, our family, our customers, our clients, right? We do that. Do we really schedule for ourselves? No. So that's something you want to do and prioritize yourself. Set those boundaries. So for instance, the other day I said this I did a similar talk a few days ago. I told my husband I was going to mow the lawn at 4:00. I like to mow because it's something I can do and then it's done and I get a workout, my little Fitbit thingy's all happy. So I literally told him, this is what I'm doing. So you're going to need to do X, Y, Z, or just like I'm doing it. So now you know, and I prioritize it. I told myself I'm doing it. And guess what? At 4:00, I went and mowed. Now, please note at 4:15, the mower died, not my fault. And the lawn didn't get done, but it's a whole other story. The gnome is safe. So that's all that matters. So, and then little bits and often, much like BW does this, the health coaches do this. They always talk about your 30 minutes of exercise every day, right? And you can block it off in 10-minute increments. The same with self-care. If that's a 2-minute meditation in the morning before you come to work, great. If that's listening to a podcast on your way home, great. If that's taking a lunch break, great. All self-care. Saying no, self-care. That's fine. Here's some great apps that you can use, Think Up and Insight Timer. Anybody who's met me knows I love Insight Timer. Affirmations and meditations are very important. Affirmations because the brain has a natural tendency to remember negative things. And we want to get accurate, right? So having more positive affirmations and those self-statements can really be helpful to wire your brain and challenge, remember, that perception of the situation, perception of self. So I would definitely encourage doing affirmations and meditations. If you are a MSEd employee, the Gabby Health and Wellness Center has Mindfulness in Motion. They are amazing. Check it out. And then do the self check-in. Try to do a self check-in with yourself. I like this quote, so I'm going to read it. Your mind and body are the only places you live in, despite whatever changes around you. Only you know what's happening. If you need help with that, you come to EAP or go to a counselor using your insurance benefits, whatever. But you're the only one who really knows with all this other stuff. So doing that self check-in and asking yourself, what am I feeling? And go beyond happy, mad, or sad. That's nice start, but it doesn't really give us a lot of information. So if I can ask myself, oh, I'm feeling kind of sad. What is it really? And I know it's kind of hard to see on the screen, but I'm feeling disappointed or dissatisfied. That gives us a lot more information on how to use those 3 coping skills I mentioned earlier to help deal with that unpleasant emotion. And the other thing is this: don't judge the emotion and don't judge yourself. Feelings are like waves upon a sand. Just wait a minute, another one's a coming. So instead of going, this is a negative emotion or a happy emotion or a positive one, ask ourselves, is it pleasant, neutral, or unpleasant? It's the unpleasant that maybe we need to do a little something with. Okay? That's where you might want to use your coping skills. And then ask yourself, what am I thinking? These are some interesting ones we've heard lately. Does it ever get easier? Ask yourself, how could I make better choices so that doesn't cause me so much stress? My favorite is this one. Why do I always like this? And that, oops, there we go. Ask yourself, what about this task causes me concern or worry? Okay? There's nothing wrong with you. It's not a you issue. There's nothing bad about you that makes you quote unquote do something. There's a reason for it. The way your brain's functioning, it's fine. We just got to kind of figure it out and find something that's better for you. And then my favorite was during the switchover is, why do I have to work in the office? And what are the benefits, though, for you working on site is maybe the question that you need to ask yourself, or what are the costs? A lot of clients come to counseling and say, why me? Why do I act like this? What's wrong? Why? I ask you to ask yourself, what and how? What am I feeling? What am I thinking? What's getting in the way? How could I go about this? My favorite question I ask myself now is, what's getting in the way? Because I'm not getting my documentation done in a timely fashion. I keep asking myself, besides not liking it, what's getting in the way of me doing it? That's going to lead me more to empowerment and making a solution, or finding a solution that works for me in the moment. And maybe I can explore more. Why is in the past? It's done. It's helpful to know sometimes, but it's done. So if I go to what and how, I will find why along the way. And then these also get you in more of an accurate state of mind. When we say and, but is a huge eraser. You're really smart, but you did really great on that project, but we're waiting for it, right? We didn't hear the positive. We went straight to, what are they going to critique me on, right? What's wrong with me? So but isn't great. It's a huge eraser. So if we can go to and, you did a great job on that presentation, and Helka, I would have liked you to talk a little bit slower. I get that one a lot. And so that and, though, keeps it more accurate. So there's the negative, quote unquote, or the unpleasant, and more information. And now I have a whole accurate picture of what's going on. So little things like, it was a tough day at work and I was able to get some headway on that project. Otherwise, I could have just stunk in the, oh, man, tough day. Oh, but at least I got something. And then vice versa. It just negates things. And then the power of yet. A lot of times we like to give ourselves labels. I'm not good at this. I don't do this well. That's not the kind of person I am, is one of my favorites. And really what we need to say is, I'm not good at this yet. I'm trying to exercise myself. I'm not doing it regularly yet. Do you see how different that is? That implies hope. Remember in the very beginning with stress and burnout, there was a sense of hopelessness. So when we can change our self-talk and even the talk with our colleagues and family members and move to yet, that really helps things move along and it leaves room for growth. Pretty much focus on what's in control of you. Sorry, what you're in control of. Woo, that was a Freudian slip, ladies and gentlemen. Focus on what is in your control and what's within your influence. Remember that one slide I had, there's all of these things going on. I can't go everywhere. I can't protest everything. I can't. I don't have the energy. I don't have the time. I have a full-time job. What can I do? What can I do in my little world of Helka? What can I do in my little world of OSU, within my town? Those kinds of things, if that matches your values. So be mindful of that. And when you're thinking about issues at work or at home, what's truly in your influence? And that makes things that are really big, make it a little bit more manageable and tangible for yourselves. And in regards to creating that culture of care and continuing to create that culture of care, as we continue our leadership, they're doing it, they're getting there, so that's good. They're fostering a more mental health friendly culture. That's why you have EAP. That is a HR benefit. And they beat Buckeye Wellness, the Office of the Chief Wellness Officer. There are so many different health and wellness initiatives on campus and at the WebMech Center. It's amazing. And embrace a culture of emotion. It's okay that we have different feelings. I am not going to be a robot all day long. There are certain things I'm going to be passionate about. There's certain things I'm going to get ticked about. That's okay. As long as I'm not infringing upon the rights of others, we can let some of that emotion be a little bit more real with each other. And that, do you need a mental health day off? Yes, use your sick leave. It's okay. You're allowed to do that. And sure, your employees are taken care of. And the nice thing that the pandemic has pushed is this whole different perception of what work is. And that work isn't just 8 to 5, that we can do things and still be effective with different schedules. And that's amazing. Now, if I could get, all of healthcare not to do a 12, 14-hour stint, I would love to do that for all of you. And all of us have a 32-hour work week, but that is not happening just yet. So hopefully we're keeping moving forward and getting to that. Lastly, I want you all to borrow strength. Typically, I do this presentation for departments, and I do a lot of stop and pauses and ask you, what are some self-care things that you have done? What's some time management things you've done? How have you contributed to a culture of care or managed hybrid communication? So I would implore you to do this with your teams, with your colleagues, and really borrow strength from each other. Ask somebody, how did you get through last week? That was a tough one. And let's talk about it. Let's do that. In the beginning of your meetings, connection before content. That one's important. I learned that from some 4-H extension office folks I did a talk with, and they do that, connection before content. So when they start their staff meetings or department meetings, they actually do start them off with what's something that you learned that was useful, a gratitude, some helpful tips, any successes you'd like to share. And that really gets people a little bit more motivated, and we're not so focused on the negative. And then just keep talking and sharing that information. So like if there's a Buckeye Wellness initiative coming up, you're interested, go talk to your colleagues about it. A lot of these offerings can also go to your family members and friends. Try those out too. Your EAP services are here for you. We are not just the 5 complimentary counseling sessions per issue per rolling calendar year. We are also work-life referrals. So if you need a legal or financial consultation, give us a call, send us an email, or do an online request. Also, we do a lot of trainings and workshops for departments of 10 or more. And we do manager supervisor support, and we also are part of the crisis and critical incident response teams here at The Ohio State University, Wexner Medical Center, regional campuses, and our lovely extension offices. How to access us, it's simple. One-touch shopping here. It's 1-800-678-6265. We have a new website. It's called OSU My Life Expert. Check it out. If you have questions, just email us at eap@osumc.edu. And this is how it would look if you got to us online. You would go to the health plan and you would find EAP, and you'd go right there to Impact Solutions. And that's where our new website's housed. Tons of information. Everybody asks about wills, all that kind of stuff. You can take a look on there first. And this is what your My Life Expert login looks like. And guess what? The company code's really unique. It's Buckeyes. I cannot tell you how many emails I get every day. And when I tell them, they're like, oh, my Lanta, it's Buckeyes, isn't it? I'm like, yep. And this is what that website looks like. Tons of information that for you and for your family. And remember those EAP services, they go to you. They go to your dependents up to the age of 26, your spouse or partner, any household members, your parents and parents-in-law, regardless if they're not in Ohio. And we are done. So thank you. And even though it's being recorded, this part will be edited and stopped. If you guys have any questions, and I've got the lovely Nicole, she's taking care of online questions from Zoom. Any questions or comments? I know it's a lot of information in a short amount of time. I'll turn mine off.
All right, there we go.
Okay.
I want to make sure that people online can hear me. Well, Helka, thank you so much. This is a wonderful presentation, and it's information that we all need and need to be reminded that we need to practice it. So thank you so much for being here and taking us all through that. Before we get to questions, for the folks mainly online, you'll receive a post-event email later today or Monday. There will be a Qualtric survey link. If you could take a couple minutes to fill that out. I see Helka also has a little QR code up here.
Yeah, you can use theirs. Sorry.
So, yeah, we'll make sure you get those and can fill that out just to give us some feedback and what kind of topics you guys want to see in the future. And for everyone here in person, you should have a hard copy of it, that if you can fill it out and just either leave it at your desk or put it up at the front corner, either or. So does anyone have any questions? Go to in here first. All right, so we have some online.
Excellent.
Let's see. Some people, they had no idea that their parents can use the counseling services, so that's wonderful that they are now learning that.
Good.
And they also asked, one-handed, are my parents able to obtain help with wills?
The legal consultation, it might have to go through you. I am not 100% on that. That's a great question. If you wouldn't mind emailing the EAP mailbox, that way I can answer you directly after I do some more research.
Great. And then we had another question come in of someone asking, this is probably just a refresher of what was on one of your slides. What were the 3 healthy coping skills?
The 3 healthy coping skills, and you're good because it wasn't on a slide. Number 1 is self-talk. Number 2 would be social support network. That's your friends, your community that you talk to and get support. Even if you have a therapist, they would be part of that. And thirdly, redirection or distraction. So usually when I get angry, my kitchen ends up being super, super clean because I redirect that energy and clean the heck out of my kitchen. So that's the kind of thing you want to think about, redirection and distraction. It might be you taking a moment and going to watch The Mandalorian, whatever that might be. So that's what we call redirection and distraction, kind of taking that energy and going somewhere else to give yourself a break from that emotion in a healthy, positive way.
All right. Anybody that's here in person have a question? Nope. All right. Any more questions online? I think we got to all of them, but we'll give it another minute or so if someone's typing them in. I'm not seeing any questions, just some thank yous. And then this is wonderful. So
Awesome.
yeah, we can go ahead and end it there. I'll keep the chat up for a couple minutes in case anyone has a question that comes in a little late. So thank you everyone for joining us, whether you were in person or virtual. And yeah,
and thank you for the eye feedback, everybody in here. And I could feel all the eyes on Zoom. So thank you.
Okay.